What is the paranormal? My name is Joaquin Teixeira and I work in a large cemetery. I will keep your name confidential so as not to put my job at risk. I have 25 years of experience. And many stories as you usually call paranormal to tell. Since for me the paranormal has become normal. All my life I have spent more time with the dead than with the living. At first, I heard some voices, some small whispers, attempts at contact that didn't work out, and figures that my eyes pretended not to see. And so it was during my first years here. I didn't know what it was, nor that it was possible. I mean, I thought this gift was given to people who were involved in some way. Formed some religion, and not me, who until then had not believed in anything. At least that's how I thought at the time. But as the years passed and things naturally happened, I delved deeper into this mysterious world, and discovered that the dead have stories to tell, secrets to reveal and messages to transmit. I started communicating with them, understanding their needs and desires. However, without the necessary knowledge, I often found myself in danger. Now, I find myself in the middle of a dilemma between here and hereafter, with secrets that could shake the structures of our reality. However, something else haunts me, something that I cannot reveal for now, but you will understand as the story unfolds. I feel like the boundaries between the world of the living and the dead are narrowing, and I wonder if I'm prepared for what's to come. As I said, I have worked here for 25 years, but it was only after 2 or 3 years that I understood what was happening to me. The year was 1999, and I remember it well, because it changed my life forever. The funeral was taking place. My friend and I, as we always did, waited a little distance away, giving family members space to say goodbye and pay their last respects. After a while, it was time to close the coffin. As I approached, something soon caught my attention. When I caught sight of the man who was lying there, surprise and even a certain fear took over me. For on the other side of the coffin, but standing, there was a man exactly like him. At first, I thought it was a very similar family member, or even a twin brother. But I soon realized I was wrong. He was completely lost, appearing to be disoriented. And the moment we started to lower the coffin, you could see his attitude changed. The more I looked at him, it became clear that he was the same man. He tried to get closer and make contact with his relatives who were there. But they just ignored him. But I was sure what it was about when people started to leave and some of them passed through it, as if it were snow, making and falling apart with each person who passed through it. Of course I tried to keep my sanity, and by this point I was shaking a little. And the sweat that fell on my forehead wasn't from work, as I was already used to it, but from the nervousness of seeing the whole situation right before my eyes. But one thing caught my attention while I was there throwing dirt on that coffin. It's just that he didn't seem to accept, or better said, believe that he had died. Because he constantly tried to contact the people who were saying goodbye. As soon as I finished, I grabbed my shovel, bucket of cement, and put my head down as I walked out. And at that moment, he said, "Hey friend, where are you going? You can't leave me trapped here." In reflection, I ended up looking at him, but I pretended it wasn't me, and that I hadn't seen or heard anything. I lowered my head and moved on. From that moment on, I think he realized something, because after that day, every other day, he didn't stop following me. He constantly appeared, trying to make contact, and I just ignored him, pretending not to see him. But as the days went by, seeing him wandering around, you could feel his anguish. He always tried to get involved with other people, and on several occasions he participated in wakes and funerals. But what caught my attention the most is that every time I stopped to have a coffee and smoke my cigarette, he was always by my side, as if he wanted to feel the same as me. But it was when Clara entered the story that things quickly got out of control. I still didn't understand all those events and why some people remained trapped there, while many others simply left. I talked about it at home, but no one believed me. The other gravediggers and night security guards passed by small things, mainly sounds and small figures. Events that, for the most part, are created by the energy of the place itself, but nothing like what I went through. I buried a friend and 2 members of my family, and it was very difficult for me. In the days that followed, I didn't see Vidar for a while. Yes, I ended up forgetting to say his name, but that gentleman was called Vidar. I thought he might have finally accepted his death and left us. But then, during a funeral that was completely packed, he reappeared. They can say whatever they want, but there is nothing more painful than the burial of a child. And family members began to say goodbye. I soon realized that she had stayed there. She had shoulder-length brown hair, the same color as her eyes, which seemed to show a certain fear or even surprise at everything happening right before her eyes. But as if she didn't want to be there, she didn't stay by her relative's side. She walked away, heading in another direction. As if something or someone was bothering her. This was a reason that I would only discover days later. After that, I only saw her once more, but I heard her almost every day. Somehow, she realized she could talk to me. How, that's something I still don't know. Sitting in one of the gardens, she drank a coffee and ate some crackers. Then I heard her voice in a tone of distrust and at the same time certain of what was happening. Saying, "I know you can hear me and you will have to do something for me. Something you may not like, but as far as I'm concerned, I'll be stuck here until that man pays." When he spoke and without expecting it, I slightly jumped up from the bench, making it clear to Vidar that I could hear them. As he said, whenever he smoked he was nearby. And it was after that day that my life turned upside down. It was the day I started talking to the dead. With the deceased. With the souls of those who stayed here. In the days that followed, Vidar told me about his life and the things he had done. And so little by little I began to understand why some were able to leave, while others stayed here. He hadn't been a good guy in life, he had committed crimes and done horrible things, and from what I understood, he didn't accept his death at all. In my readings I knew that the most I could do for him was pray. And so I did, day in and day out. I would stop in front of his tomb and begin a prayer. He asked for his forgiveness and for something to light his path so that he could finally move on from here. If there's one thing I learned working at this place, it's not to judge. After all, have you ever stopped to think that in 100 years, all of us, me, you, will be here or in similar places like this? In other words, how can I think I am capable of judging him? He could have done whatever he wanted with his life, including being a good man. But he chose another direction, and that brought him here. His stock picks. In the days that followed, Clara witnessed one of the most bizarre facts I have seen to date. I hadn't recognized it, and she hadn't delved into it since. But one day in the break room while I was drinking my coffee, next to an armchair, there was a huge pile of old newspapers, which had piled up over time, and during my time there, while I was drinking my cup, that big pile of coffee fell to the floor. And a random page stopped right on top of my old dirt-covered shoes. And as soon as I saw the article on the cover, I recognized it and already knew what it was about. The newspaper said, 15-year-old girl is found dead in Madagal. The victim suffered abuse and has clear signs of strangulation. The police are still looking for evidence, but so far they have no suspects. As soon as I read the article, I remembered exactly the day my wife told me about the case at home. For the first time, my blood pressure dropped. I felt my body temperature dropping. And at that moment, I knew what the girl wanted. And why was she here? Over time, I saw less and less of Vidar. He seemed to have finally accepted her death. And my prayers were finally having an effect. Seeing this, I was motivated to pray at other tombs, where I saw shadowy figures, who did not express any type of reaction, and did not look anything like the other souls that were there. Which, in my opinion, just needed some kind of guidance and acceptance. These, yes, seemed to really be pure evil. But at no point did I hesitate to pray for them. During this period, the atmosphere in the cemetery became a little more agitated. I heard more distant voices, figures disappearing behind the large mausoleums or just disappearing through the small pencils. And that's when she came back. For a while, I even thought she was gone, but no. Short and to the point, she made me spill all my hot coffee on myself, when she asked, "Are you going to help me or not? I know who did this to me, and I can't move on while he's moving on with his life as normal." That, at first, sounded like a threatening tone. I didn't understand for sure if it was for me or for whoever had done that to her. As I said, I couldn't see her, only hear her. She seemed to hide as if she were ashamed of what had happened to her. But I knew she would stay there, as she was determined to seek justice for what had happened to her. So, in a tone of curiosity, I asked how I could help her. And then she told me that she knew who had done that to her, and she was also sure that the person would pay for it one day. But until that day came, she insisted that he also pay, according to the law of men, for what he had done to her. This man was nothing more, nothing less, than his own uncle, his own blood. Hearing that, I felt sorry for the girl and angry at the same time. She told me everything she could remember, and from then on, I decided she would help. That same night, I had a dream about Vidar, as if he had come to say goodbye. His face was lighter as he walked and waved at me. I didn't know what that truly meant, but I never saw him again after that, not even while I was smoking. My head was in a whirlwind. I needed to make a decision, but after hearing everything that girl told me, I couldn't live in peace, not even with myself. Restless during my lunch break, I headed towards a pay phone near the cemetery. And, without identifying myself, I said I was calling to give information about a girl's crime. And I told everything and all the details that Clara had managed to tell me. And I hung up right away, feeling like I had made the right choice. After a few days, on one of my breaks, I felt a light breeze and a whisper right next to me, which just said thank you. And that was the last time I heard it. Days later, while heading to work, I passed a magazine stand. And I saw that guy's face plastered all over the newspapers. Uncle was arrested, accused of the death of his niece Clara. I experienced many sensations at that moment, of fear, uncertainty, joy, sadness, I can't say for sure. But over time I no longer needed to make people believe in me. During a period, I was afraid that they would think I was crazy and I kept wanting to prove to them that what I said was true. Today I no longer have that need. I do what I can and when I can within what I believe. I wanted to share some of my stories, especially the ones I told in private. Which was where it all started. And I needed to share them with someone. Who knows, maybe someone is also going through the same situation. And perhaps by listening to me, you can seek a little guidance. My name is Joaquin, but you can call me Joka. I'm a gravedigger and, yes, I talk to the dead. If you liked this story, I ask you to leave a like and subscribe to receive more content like this. That's it for today, but we'll see you soon, in the next video.